everyone, and welcome to Tal Talks. We are having our very special second Sugar Plum Fairy edition, and this is going to be a really great show because I have a magical performer who I might even say has a bubbly personality. I know, I'm terrible. This is Meadow Perry. I'm really excited to talk to her. Hello, how are you?
Hi, Tal. Talia, I'm so good. How are you?
I'm glad to finally talk to you in person. Well, kind of in person, but
Yeah.
I've talked to you online, like in emails a ton, and I've
Mhm.
been trying my bestest to get you to our fair someday. It will happen.
It will happen. It definitely will happen. Yes.
I really want to see you in person. I couldn't believe when I first saw your show online, my baby was just a little tiny infant. He's still little, but he was just a little tiny infant, and he was just mesmerized. Like he saw the
Oh,
bubbles and was just like, and
that's my
it wasn't.
favorite.
He wasn't paying attention to TV back then. I mean, now he still doesn't pay much attention, but it was just so funny. You could have anything going on in the background, he wouldn't notice.
Right.
But the bubbles, he was just like,
That's so fun. Yeah. Can you imagine what they look like in person?
I, yeah, I can only imagine. I'm hoping at least to get to one of your shows one of these days.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so with, with all that, do you want to describe your act to people who are watching?
Yeah, so I'm Meadow Perry. I'm a bubble magician. You might not have heard of that before. Um, and you'll see on Saturday, I believe it is.
Yep.
You'll see Saturday, you'll see a little bit of what I do, and it's hard to describe other than, hey, I play with bubbles. So, yeah, I take magic and I take bubbles, and I take the bubbles and I take them way beyond what you thought was possible with bubbles, and in a very thrilling, enthralling show.
I would definitely say that you take bubbles to the next level. I was amazed at how many things you could do with bubbles. I never really thought about it. You kind of just think of those little wands and that's about
Mhm.
it. But there's some crazy things that you do with bubbles.
Yes, there is a whole world of bubble artistry out there, and I love it.
So, what got you into this bubble artistry?
Well, fairies. So you're aptly dressed. But so I've been a performer for pretty much all my life. But I was doing children's parties, and as a princess, and I decided I wanted my own character, and I wanted to do magic, but I didn't want to be a clown. So I decided on fairy. So Meadowlark the fairy was born. I created her for children's parties, but then someone said, "Hey, this character is really great. You should go audition for the Renaissance Fair." So I did, and then just another friend of mine was like, "Hey, you should do bubbles with your magic." So I did, and it became a big hit at the New Jersey Renaissance Fair. They kind of gave me a chance there. I said, "Hey, I have this vision," and they said, "Sure, go ahead," and it was amazing, and I got a lot of great feedback from it, and created a whole show around bubbles. And now I'm doing various Renaissance fairs, doing this bubble show, but now more as myself instead of Meadowlark. She kind of gave me the wings to fly, and now Meadow Perry is flying on her own. Because it's not just a show for kids, and I want everyone to know that, and that it's a very interesting show for everybody. So yeah.
There's certain genres that people just assume are for kids. Like I
Yeah.
play pirate music, and everyone thinks, "Oh, pirates, that's for kids," and so we have to kind
Right.
of, I don't know. Some of our songs were pretty bawdy, and we were like, "No, we're gonna have to make a different set just in case it's all
Yeah.
kids in the audience," and it tends to be a lot of kids in the audience,
Absolutely. Yeah.
especially
Absolutely.
Renaissance fairs now. Are you pretty much? I know you play a lot of different run fairs. You go to a lot of different ones and perform. But are you pretty much always at New Jersey whenever they do their fairs? It seems like you're there a lot because you
Yes.
live in
I'm
that area.
Yeah, I always do New Jersey. I started doing Sparta, New Jersey as well, the Philadelphia Ren Fair, and the Midsummer Fantasy Fair up in Connecticut. And I've done Michiana. I've popped over to Michiana and did their season last year. So
How was that?
it was great. It was fun. It was the first time that I had really traveled to a Renaissance fair where I didn't know anybody. and came in as a solo performer, not knowing anyone. So, but I made great friends really fast because it's the Ren Fair culture.
Yeah.
No matter where you go, if you're fair family, they're your fair family. It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
It's great.
Yeah.
I love it.
Pretty much the Ren Fairs are very welcoming right away, and they're excited to
Yeah.
see you. And especially new performers are like, oh, it's a new
Yeah.
person.
Absolutely. It's great.
So you make bubbles of all different shapes and sizes, but I want to know what's the biggest bubble that you've
Oh,
ever
gosh.
created.
Um, I've created probably, I want to say like a 20-foot bubble. Yeah, they get pretty big.
The size of a building.
Yeah. If the conditions are right, they can be really, really big. So there's one fair that I did. It was a short little weekend fair. That it was the Smithville Renaissance Fair. That they have a little lake that they're on, and there's a pier, and you can go out. And so the conditions are just right for bubbles because there's moisture in the air. So I can get really huge, long bubbles over the water, and it looks amazing.
It's awesome. You could like have the whole fair inside a bubble.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that brings me to kind of my next question. What's the hardest bubble trick that you do?
Oh gosh. Right now, the hardest one that I perform, because I certainly have lots of things that I'm still rehearsing that I haven't debuted yet, that are coming. But the hardest one that I perform right now is the tornado bubble, and I put a smoke bubble at the bottom, and I pop it from the inside of the bubble. You break the wall. It's really hard. And you have the air rotating inside, and then you pop a hole in the top, so it creates a vortex of the smoke. It looks fantastic. It's a very delicate procedure, like surgical.
I like that it's magic, but you could be teaching kids some science when it comes to that, and
absolutely.
talking about how tornadoes are created and how there's different wind speeds and temperatures and things that apply to that. That's really neat.
Yeah.
People always think, oh, it's magic. It's like, well.
Yeah. Well, when we come across things that we can't explain with science, we call them, or logic. If we can't explain it with science or logic, we call it magic. So.
So what do you think would be the hardest part about you have specific tricks that are more difficult than others, but what would be the hardest part of performing your act?
The hardest part is that the wind doesn't always cooperate. Especially when I do a Renaissance fair, the more intricate tricks I can't do outside at a Renaissance fair. It's just no possible way. But when the wind is really kicking up, I have to do more magic tricks, more traditional magic tricks than the bubble stuff, because it just doesn't work with the wind. So I always blame the fairies. So
the funny thing about that is literally every single person that I've asked that question to has said the wind.
The wind.
Every single, no matter what type of performer they are, and I feel like it would affect you more than them.
Yes.
But magicians, sideshow acts, music acts, they all say, "Oh, the wind." Oh, and balancers, all of them, they all say, jugglers.
It's a thing. Yeah, there are definitely some fair mornings where I'm like, oh my gosh, you guys, look at the humidity. It's 83% and it's 2% wind. I'm so excited. And then they're like, okay, calm down there, weather girl. But I'm on top of it. I know what I'm walking into for the day.
Although then you get out there and it completely goes haywire. Like it's just a rain cloud flies over.
Yep.
Yeah. You kind of got to be on your toes for a lot of the outdoor activities.
Definitely.
So I know you have bubbles, but I was wondering what other types of aspects you incorporate. I've seen some smoke bubbles. You have some fire type things going on. What other aspects do you incorporate into your act?
I do. So I do the bubble wall. That's probably my favorite piece that I do. I can't do it at Renaissance fairs, but in this virtual platform where there's no wind here in this realm, I can do my stage tricks like the bubble wall. I do other magic things, some illusions that I do, and I do incorporate fire. I do have a bit where I use a sword, and I put it through a bubble without popping the bubble. So there's a lot of elements that are Renaissance Fair inspired for my show because I love the Ren Fair so much, and it's kind of evolved from there.
Um, do you have any advice for people? Well, first, do you have any advice for just making bubbles in general, just for kids or for beginners or people who like bubbles? What would be your advice to make, nice, good bubbles?
Well, you can incorporate lots of ingredients. You can just get some bubble solution straight from the dollar store and add a little glycerin to it. And you can find glycerin if you're in the States, because I know being virtual, we're kind of global here. But if you're in the States, if you go to CVS, they have little bottles of glycerin with the cosmetics on the bottom shelf. So if you add a little glycerin to your bubble mix, then they'll make them what's called self-healing. It makes them a little stronger. And you can also use other things like sugar or Caro syrup. And I actually have a recipe on my YouTube channel that you can check out to make some stronger bubbles. And then just play with bubbles at home. Just experiment with them, see what they can do, what they won't do. Find items that you can blow bubbles through, strings, necklaces, wires. You can make all kinds of wacky shapes. It just have fun. Bubbles are fun. Make a mess. That's the best memories are when you make a mess. Parents, I'm sorry.
Now, you talked about doing some other traditional magic during your acts if you couldn't do some of the bubbles. What's some of the other traditional magic that you do?
Well, I do illusions. I do have a few illusions that involve bubbles, but they aren't inherently bubbles. And then I also have started doing card magic, and I found a really interesting way to combine cards with bubbles, and I do it in my virtual show. And then I also have a bubble foam thing that I do. That's a really interesting prediction piece, so a little bit of mentalism, where I read your mind. And
Nice.
so I do some more of that more traditional magic stuff. And then for my children's show, we clean the coloring book out and we clean the pages, the colors out of the
That's
coloring
cool.
book with
Yeah,
the
I've seen
bubbles.
that.
So it's all stuff that's related to bubbles, but isn't actually bubbles. So yeah.
That's great. That'd be really fun to watch.
Yeah.
Well, first off, have you ever had a show that went perfect? Like every single trick went well, every bubble went well. It was just the best.
Yes, and I was really upset because it was videotaped and it was so perfect. But the way the lighting was,
Oh
it was
no.
fantastic in person, but the way the lighting was, you couldn't see the bubbles.
Ah.
And I was like, no, it was so perfect.
Well, everyone who saw it will remember. It'll be in
Yes.
their heads. It's the perfect show. But have you ever had a show go wrong, and what did you do to maybe compensate for that?
Yes. I did have a show where my bubbles had gotten cold, and when they get cold for too long, it affects their like integrity. The bubble mixture might not work as well.
Did not know that.
So
Because
Yeah.
freeze a little bit even though they're soapy?
they can freeze,
Oh.
but when it gets below like probably like 40 degrees for an extended period of time, it just doesn't make them work as well.
Mhm.
So I did this show and I was doing bubble wall, and it just wasn't stretching enough to just make that big film. You'll see it on Saturday if you haven't seen my show, but it wasn't stretching, and it was a 6-minute piece. And I'm on stage,
Oh
and
my
I'm
gosh.
going, what do I do? How do I get through this? So I just thought fast, and I made some smaller sort of parts of the bubble wall instead of doing the full thing. And I just kind of put that as a character moment. in that you could tell I was getting upset, but I definitely went with the music and just made it seem like I was building the suspense. And then finally the bubbles decided to cooperate at the end.
Oh, good.
And the audience like went on that journey with me, and it became this like they cheered, and it really did build the suspense of like, oh no, is she gonna get it? Oh no. And it turned out great in the end.
I feel like that's a big part of performing for, especially Ren fairs, is just kind of going with it, because you never know what's going to happen. And obviously the weather that we talked about can just throw everyone for a loop. All right. Well, I think we have made it to our tongue twister challenge portion of the interview. This is where I get to have some fun with you. So I'm going to be, can you get to the chat?
I can get to the chat.
Okie dokie.
All right.
I am going to be posting the tongue twister in the chat.
Oh, I'm excited for this. Okay.
And try to say it as fast as you can. You can have a second to look at it.
All right. Here we go. Pesky pixies pilfered plum pies from a pair of peculiar plum pickers playing panpipes.
That was really good. Do you think you can do it faster?
I think I can. Okay.
All right.
Let me get in here. All right. Pesky pixies. I already messed up. Okay. Pesky pixies pilfered plum pies from a pair of peculiar plum pickers playing panpipes.
Yay! That was great. It's so funny to see because of the different people I interview, the ones that are the talkers, like they're really good with the tongue twisters, and then some people who do acts where they don't really talk that much are like, oh god. Like when I had the knights don't normally talk, they fight, and they're used to sword fighting and just being in their armor, and then suddenly they're like, oh, I can't do this.
I'm gonna save this. This is a good warm up. Because I do. Have you heard of the black bug tongue twister?
No.
I do it for warm ups. I say one black bug bled black blood while the other black blood bled blue. Oh, and then you go faster and faster and faster. And once you have it memorized, you can like do it. But that's my warm up. So this is a good warm up.
One black
bug bled black blood while the other black bug bled blue.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Okay. Yeah, that's definitely not an easy one. I'll make the actors for our fair say it.
Yeah, that's
before they go on stage.
That was from high school for me when I was in show choir, and it's always stuck with me.
You know what? I have one more question for you that I just thought of, just off the top of my head. What drew you to fairies? What made you decide that you wanted to have a fairy character in the first place?
I think it was the princess thing of like trying to find something that was similar, that appeals to children when I was doing children entertainment. So fairy seemed natural, and I had played, some of the copyrighted fairies that are out there. I don't want to name names, but so, and being a fairy is fun, just is. Having wings, So
that's great, yeah. Okay, so you were able to do my challenge. So now why don't you let people know what things you have going on, what gigs you have coming up, what your websites, all that kind of stuff.
Sure. So you can find me at meadowperry.com. And on my website, you can find links to all my social medias. But I am on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. You can even find me on TikTok. I don't know why I'm there, but join me. It'll be a fun time. And I do have a show coming up. I just wrapped my inaugural show of my run. So I will have another one coming up in January, on January 8th. So if you follow my Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, you will get a heads up as to when that show will be and when tickets go on sale. January 8th will be the show.
And that's an online show that they can...
Yes, I'm sorry. I forget that, I have to differentiate. It will be an online show. It's an all virtual show that happens through Zoom from the comfort of your own home.
And I'm assuming that you'll, hopefully when the summer hits, we will be able to have real fairs in this area again. And you will be at the New Jersey fairs.
Yes, they have already reached out to me. They are doing a shorter run this year, but I will be there, barring that everything goes well, until springtime. But I will definitely be at New Jersey Renaissance Fair.
And hopefully we will get you to Massachusetts one of these days,
Yes,
so that
absolutely.
people can see all the beautiful bubbles
Yeah.
and the magic. I'm really, really looking forward to that someday.
Me too.
If not, I'm going to come to New Jersey and see you.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I mean, I'm not sure. I think Connecticut might be closer. The Midsummer.
Connecticut's a lot closer.
Yeah. I'll definitely be at Midsummer Fantasy Fair, so that might be closer.
Okay, that'll be easier. Although I really want to see the New Jersey Fair anyway. I still haven't gotten a chance to get out there.
It is a wonderful little fair. Their grounds are magical. It
looks really pretty. All the pictures I've seen.
Yeah, I love New Jersey Renaissance Fair.
But okay, so you'll be at Midsummer also.
Yes.
Which is a lot closer to us in Connecticut, or in Massachusetts, to go to Connecticut.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I really had fun talking to you. Yeah. It was great.
Same. Thank you so much for having me.
And I hope that everyone will be able to see your show this Saturday, right on all of our pages on YouTube and on Facebook.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much, everyone. Bye.
Happy holidays. Luckily, I was wearing a witch's hat because it was Halloween, and the rock hit the hat on the brim. And
my God.
Show's done right now.